Hello, everyone, and welcome to TableTakes, presented by Gen Con, the hottest takes by the coolest people. I am the Mike Robles, and joining me this week is Tifa, Emma, and special guest Derek. Derek,
Well, hello.
You're basically a regular on the show now.
I'm a regular special guest.
You're a regular special guest. Christian is not with us this week, but that's all right. He'll be back next week. But maybe one of us won't be, and it'll be Derek again. Next week, Derek will be Tifa.
Derek's just gonna absorb all of us, like
All of your
seismic
knowledge,
ooze.
all of your knowledge will be mine.
Turns out Derek is a scroll. All right, let's jump right into it. We've got so many things to talk about, and we're just going to jump right into it. First off, let's start off with headlines. Number one, let's talk about USAopoly. They're changing their name. They're going to become the OP, or the OP.
The op.
Or the op.
Or the OP. Or, I mean, they're OP, as is.
It's the op.
Or the
No.
whoop. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can pronounce
From
it,
Boston,
right?
it's going to be the op.
You guys might know the OP, I almost said the OP. The OP from such games is basically any licensed Monopoly game ever. A billion versions of code names. And so they're doing all of these awesome games. And they just also, with the announcement of their rebranding, have talked about there's going to be 3 brand new Harry Potter games coming out.
Yeah, including Harry Potter Scrabble.
There.
Yeah, all right. I was going to get to that one. Let's talk about. You guys have feelings? Clearly.
Just let that sink in for a
Well,
moment.
but think about it. There's a lot of terms in Harry Potter that would not be eligible for normal Scrabble. So having a variant in which they are free to be used makes sense.
Do you think Harry Potter fans were already playing like their own version of it? They were just
Well,
already
I
playing
know.
Scrabble, just be like,
I
Expelliarmus is a word.
I guarantee you that there was somebody somewhere.
It's like if you hate fun, then you can't play these words. If you play Horcrux and someone's like, that's not a word, then you're like,
Look, if you want to play tournament legal Harry Potter Scrabble, this is the only way to do it.
The way to do
There you
it.
go. When the op uses their OP organized play to do tournament Scrabble, it's gonna be a huge thing.
The
that hurts my
OPOP.
brain.
It's the
OP.
HP OP presented by the op.
There.
That's,
Yeah, but
I feel
then
just like, what?
when are we going to find out which cards are OP though?
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, there.
So let's take a moment to talk about this rebranding. Is it because they're moving away from USA? Is it because they're moving away from
Opoly?
Opoly? Who knows?
Well, it is because there's, board game is international for
Yeah.
a lot of people in the U.S. Like, we're like, oh, we're discovering this cool board game stuff. And people in Europe are like, this has been around forever. Like, we are the children in the forest compared to
There's a
how
whole
established.
there's a whole history of games that we will eventually talk about on this show about board games.
Eventually.
Eventually. By that point, there'll be more history to discuss.
Yeah.
But I think it's much more about getting away from Monopoly.
I
Just because
agree.
it's kind of really inherent in that title. And they've
Yeah.
been releasing a lot of other stuff that is not connected to Monopoly.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I think they just wanted the freedom to not be tied to that as much.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. In addition to Harry Potter Scrabble, they're doing they already have their popular deck building game, their Harry Potter deck building game. But there's going to be a Defense Against the Dark Arts version, which is going to be a 2-player deck building game, which I think is really, really neat.
Presumably competitive then compared to the cooperative.
Probably.
But I've watched enough Harry Potter now to make the joke that if they did a Defense Against the Dark Arts game, you wouldn't be able to play against the same enemy more than once, right?
Oh, yeah.
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 I like that. Yeah,
got it.
your Harry Potter trivia knowledge.
getting
Like
there.
it's
Getting there.
thank Nelly for that, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you, Nelly.
Thanks,
Where she's
Nelly.
at. And then the third game is a super secret game, Harry Potter themed.
We don't even know what it
We don't know
is.
what it is, but we know it's co-op.
I'm supposed to be coming in 2019 too.
29. Oh, that's this year.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Duly noted.
I think it's very exciting because we can really credit the Harry Potter cooperative deck building game with getting a lot of people into the hobby and into deck building and into cooperative games. Like, these are all things that, for experienced gamers, you're just like, deck builder, oh yeah, of course.
Right.
But for somebody who doesn't really know, it's like, oh, it's Harry Potter, and then you have a card and you're like, oh, I've got, my stuff is bad, but I get better stuff in the future. And I think it really got a lot of people.
So you mentioned, you say you think Harry Potter. What about Legendary and Marvel? Do you think that also brought it
I think Harry Potter's a little more accessible.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the
Before-
audience for Harry Potter is more likely to not be gamers than
Yeah.
people who are into comics.
Devin, I tried.
There. But probably two. Probably a portion. I mean, it's a bigger portion with Harry Potter.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I definitely had experience running a lot of Marvel Legendary demos at a comic book convention and getting a whole lot of people who had never played a deck builder before through that. So it does happen.
Yeah.
But I do agree that I think that the kind of Venn diagram of gamer and comic book fan is maybe a little closer than gamer and Harry Potter fan.
Yeah.
All right. Neat. All right. Speaking of Marvel, Marvel and Jumanji both announced they're going to have a version of Fluxx coming out. Fluxx is the popular draw one, play one. I guess that's the basic rules set.
Right,
now
but the rules
has
change throughout the game.
basically every IP ever.
Yeah.
I think we should talk about this for a moment. Okay,
Yeah.
so this game is made by Looney Labs.
Yep.
Looney Labs is a couple who I think I don't want to get too much into it, but like they live in the woods. Like they just came up with this great concept for this game, and then just blew it up into like they have Batman, they have Star Trek, they have almost literally every IP ever made. So
Adventure Time. We have the Adventure Time.
Back to the Future.
Yeah.
So just to have this like, you know, these like two people just make this amazing thing out of this just like simple card game and get so many people excited about it.
Do they have a Walking Dead version?
They have a zombie Fluxx.
Yeah,
They
but like
do have
it just strikes me that like I feel like Walking Dead is one of the other very prominent IPs that somehow they don't have.
Do you not? How many copies of Fluxx do you own?
I think I might only have one or none. I don't know.
Really? I might
We own
maybe
at least
Yeah.
3.
We have 3.
I just have the Star Trek Next Generation.
Ooh,
Best
all
Star
right.
Trek. Fight me.
I think Love Letter is the IP game that I have.
We also
We also
have
have quite a few. For Fluxx,
A
we
lot.
own Batman, Adventure Time,
and regular.
and Zombie. We have 4.
Oh, we have 4.
4.
Yeah, look at
But
that.
working at Mox, I mean, we had the drawer. The people like, oh, I'd like to play Flux. You pull out the drawer, shake.
Which-
And then it's just like, do you want to play Zombie Flux? Do you want to play Nature Flux, Eco Flux, Math Flux?
Flux is one we take when we travel because
Yeah.
it's a really good like airplane game.
Yeah.
Speaking of airplane games, Love Letter,
Yes, that's another one.
another one we talked about. Getting a facelift, and Tifa, you said you were so excited about this.
I am really excited. So the art is looking amazing. It's actually by the same artist that did Citadels, which is cool. But it has a lot more diverse representation.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which is super awesome. And they're introducing 2 new characters. It didn't look like
okay.
they've said what they are yet. But yeah, I am very excited to see this when it comes out.
Love Letter is definitely one of those games that I'm happy to get a new version of
Yeah.
just because
Yeah.
it tickles my fancy. Like I have Adventure Time, I've got the normal, I've got Kanai edition, I've got the L5R edition.
We have the wedding edition.
Oh yeah, with the wedding edition, I
Yep.
think I still have all the
Yep.
remaining copies of that
still
have-
in the
we-
country in my house.
There.
We have quite a few. I think we got a box of them.
We got
from
a box
friend's
of
wed-
them.
from
Well, I
another
just feel
friend's
like
wedding.
the art can just be kind of applied to anything.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
game itself is so cheap and fast that it's great to just have another version.
Wait, isn't the wedding one the one you can only buy if you're getting married or something?
I have all
Yeah.
of
Shoot.
It's gone. It's out of
it.
print.
Would you like some?
Oh.
Derek has them all.
Yes?
He's-
I have a box.
So because I got married, but I wasn't thinking about Love Letter because I was like, oh, when I get married, I gotta do this.
Yeah.
One of the primary, most important things about getting married.
If you
I-
also would like a copy, you can PayPal Derek at frequentbeef.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. Yeah, we have. So how many? So you got a bunch of
I
copies.
have
How many
probably
copies-
4 or 5.
How many copies of Love Letter, different IPs do you have?
Just the one. I like classic.
You're
Yeah.
old school.
Old school when it
Her
comes to
house
Love
is
Letter.
probably a lot less cluttered than ours.
We have Wedding. I think we have regular. We have Adventure Time.
Do have
And
regular.
we have Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah, so we have 4, but we have like 5 copies of the wedding one.
We have
so.
so many copies. We had enough copies that as friends were getting married, that were gamer friends that didn't have this, it was our wedding gift to them. It was
Aw,
like, here you
that's
go,
so
here's
perfect.
Love Letter Wedding Edition.
We also donated a bunch to charity.
We
too.
did donate a bunch of
Yeah.
charity, that's right.
Nice.
Whew, so many things. So many things. All right, moving on. Playfusion, we've talked about before on the show. They do Light Seekers and then the Warhammer trading card or digital card game and physical card game. Just launched an organized play companion app, which we talked about, which is really neat. And Emma brought this up because this is more customer facing,
Yes.
unlike the Wizards one, which is an internal one. So let's talk about like the cool things about that.
Well, to let people know how the Wizards one works. Like when we say internal, we mean that you go to the store, you sign up for the tournament, you play in the tournament,
Right.
and the store collects all the information, your DCI numbers, all that kind of stuff, and reports that to Wizards, so that Wizards knows who played, how many people played, how it went, how healthy is the game, where is it doing well, whether that store qualifies for their retail program. I'm not sure about all the details of that, but that's basically how it's set up.
Yeah.
And this is kind of a departure from that, where instead of the store doing it, the customer's involved in some way.
Well, you're missing the essential intermediary step where you commune with the gods and perform esoteric rituals, in order to transmit this information.
You're not supposed to talk about that.
Well, there's kind of like a secret sauce where they're like, all the power was like held with the local game stores, and there's kind of like, you have to come here if you want to do an official event, it's very like centralized and focused.
There's a reason it's called Wizards.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Sparkles. This is when do like the sparkle effects.
Magic.
Make my hands sparkle.
Yeah, we'll fix it in post on a live stream.
But this is really cool, and especially for a game, because nowadays like it's getting harder and harder for a TCG to create in-person like local game store scene.
Yeah.
So and have that be supported by the game stores, because like the game stores are doing a lot of stuff, and like, does it make sense? Like, I got to sell product, I got to get into all these different games.
Yeah.
So giving the power to the players makes it a lot more likely that you'll get an organized play scene.
Well, and I even think just the idea of an app is like game changing.
Oh yeah.
Like if Wizards had an app where players could check their Planeswalker points, and like regularly keep track of stuff on an app versus having to go onto a website, like that would be really great.
Yeah.
There's a ton of potential here. I mean, I love the idea of having an app that I can go into to figure out where the game that I like is going to have tournaments.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
See what my standing is. Not have like just apparently the app will handle structuring the tournament, seeding people, randomizing things, keeping track of points. It'll help players find the game in their area. Theoretically, you could then have a profile in the app or a website if it connects to it. So you could, if you're proud of your record, you could direct people there to kind of see it. There's a lot of interesting potential there.
Well, and Wizards does have event locator,
Yeah.
but again, it's all on like online, not in in an app.
It's all kind of
which is
splintered.
really cool. Yeah.
Because you can like go to the site and you can see your rankings, or you can go to the site, and also with the event locator, sometimes it's not actively managed.
Yeah.
So a lot of times it's like, oh, this place has done events in the past. So
Yeah.
hopefully with something like this, it's going to be a little more like just like in your hands, like,
Right.
Just like the
A
power
little more
to
immediate.
play. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of potential. Hopefully, other companies will learn from their success
Yeah,
too.
I think it's great.
Yeah. Speaking of things that are great, Japanese horror. Japanese horror is by far some of the craziest stuff in the world.
It's scary.
It is very. I still prefer the original Japanese version of The Ring compared to the American version, because holy crap, that was terrifying. WizKids, famous company doing a lot of really cool stuff. They do a lot of games.
I love WizKids. They're great.
They're doing great.
Yeah.
They're releasing a Japanese horror game, and I'm not going to pronounce it because I know I will butcher it.
Hako Onna.
Thank you very much, Derek. There you go.
This is why we have Derek.
This is what we have Derek, because he tells us how to say things
Give
properly.
good words.
So this is going to be a Japanese deduction and exploration game, an asymmetrical game of hide and seek, which, if you've seen the original Japanese Ring, there's basically that scene, and it is terrifying.
Or it sounds like The Grudge too.
Oh yeah, that's I'm thinking The Grudge. I'm sorry, I'm thinking The Grudge. Both of them are still terrifying.
I was gonna let that pass and
No,
just
it's
help,
fine.
but-
That's
Yeah.
fine. It was The Grudge. I went and saw a double feature, and it was the two of those movies. It was amazing.
I don't do horror.
Yeah.
I have some movies
I'm
to
a
show
big
you.
wimp.
Nope.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
St. John's Wort.
So
Running away.
in this, one player will take the role of.
Hako Onna.
Thank you very much.
Which means woman in the box.
Right.
And the other players will be the visitors, and the visitors must be quiet as they search the dark rooms for information, items to protect themselves, or a way to escape. This is like the scariest Scooby-Doo in the world.
And probably people die.
There's probably going to be death.
Yeah. I'm interested to see, there wasn't a lot about the form factor of the game, whether it's something like Nyctophobia, where you have you're blindfolded, or your eyes are closed, I think, for that one.
Yeah, in Nyctophobia, there's one person who plays like the axe
I think
murderer.
got the shades. That's what,
So one person plays the axe murderer.
Yeah.
Everybody else plays the victims. All the victims have to put these glasses that will block out all light and vision, and they have to navigate the board by sound and touch.
Yeah.
And the killer can just see what's happening.
Oh,
Is
man.
Killer's also like the GM of the
Yeah,
game?
yeah, well, yeah,
They,
like-
like
This
put
game.
your-
Yep.
Yeah,
It's one of those
yeah.
things where like that's actually kind of honestly the most like weirdly engaging part of the game is
Yeah.
that you as the victim have to put out your hand and let the killer take your hand and put it on your piece
Oh my
so that you know where you are.
I need this game.
It is an
I-
experience.
I've never heard of this game.
I think it was the story was I think the designer did it because she wanted to make a game because I think her dad
Her
was,
uncle
her
was
uncle was
blind,
blind and she wanted to make a game to play with him.
Everything
So cool.
about this game is
I
lovely.
am purchasing this game when I leave for the stream today.
Well,
It's
so-
Yeah.
I'm buying a game.
Yep.
I'm just letting you know.
So for the form factor, this is interesting because is it more like experiential like that, or is it going to be more kind of just logical? Like, it's I can see everything, but it's dark. You know.
We don't know.
It sounds interesting.
Apparently,
yeah,
we're
sure.
going to be keeping an eye out for more details.
Yeah, heck yeah, we are. We'll be hiding.
I'll be looking behind my shoulder
we'll be
for more
keeping quiet.
details.
Yeah, we'll be keeping quiet. ToyFair, New York ToyFair just happened recently, and they announced a ton of stuff. And Emma, you wanna talk about the cool stuff that you?
Yeah, so there's a listing of some of the stuff. I will say we're going to get to Force Roseanne in later in the segment
see,
here.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
a lot of the games that popped up were ones that they had worked on, which is really cool to
Oh, that's
see a Seattle company. Horrified was one of the ones, cooperative game featuring old-timey monsters.
Hang on,
That's my term.
All right.
They're old.
Not old timey monsters. The universal. It's specifically the universal horror monsters. The classic. So swamp not swamp thing.
Thing.
The Creature from the Black Lagoon,
Black Lagoon.
Invisible Man, Dracula, Frankenstein. The old universal tropes. Those guys. Maybe even Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, and if you see the box art too, it's just
so cool.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
total
Basically,
fan service for that. It's
Yeah.
just like the monsters.
if it was a monster on Monster Squad, it's going to be in this game.
yeah.
Oh, Monster Squad is a classic kids horror film from the 80s. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
and 4 classic Jaws too. I mean, they're literally just working their way.
This
through.
one looked really cool. So Jaws, one player plays as the shark.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and everyone else is on the boat, right?
It's so cool. I'm gonna bite you. Like
Yeah.
it's looks. I was like, this looks amazing.
Our toddler already plays this game with us.
Yeah.
Is it related to the shark song?
It's
Baby
what
shark?
it actually wasn't, but it does
Okay.
make him like the shark song more.
But and Force Roseanne has done some great stuff. Like they had the Jurassic Park Danger game come
Yeah.
out this year or last year, like late last year. Middle of the year. I don't know when games come out, but it came out. And that was another asymmetric, like big stompy monster chasing after a bunch of your favorite heroes. So looks super exciting. Monopoly Game of Thrones.
By the op.
By the op.
By the OP. This game will be.
Presumably, or for
This game will
sure.
be OP.
Yeah.
I want, like, is this gonna work? Like, is this gonna be?
Is this gonna?
There's-
It's
Well,
Monopoly.
But I mean, like,
Game of Thrones, so everybody dies.
yeah, like
Yeah.
you just at one point you just die.
Yeah, so
Like, you're out of the
maybe
game.
instead of going bankrupt, you're just
Dead.
executed.
Yeah.
But the
Like,
bits are what people are excited about, right? There's going to be the Iron Throne.
all right.
is-
Well,
Right?
yes, it's Iron.
Sorry.
I don't even watch Game of Thrones. Yes, it's the Iron Throne.
Iron
There's probably
Throne.
like an Iron Throne, maybe someone's head that
Yeah,
got
what about
beheaded.
the individual
don't
player
know.
pieces?
I don't watch Game
It's
of
probably going to be
Game of
like a
Thrones.
foot or something.
It would be
somebody's
pretty
hair.
funny if one gets to be Sean Bean and the other is Sean Bean's head. Spoiler alert.
No, if I see Sean Bean in anything, I'm like, oh, he's gonna die.
Yep.
His character's gonna like. Is that in his contract?
There was actually an RPG where everybody plays Sean Bean trying to survive to the end.
Oh, I will say, like, putting Game of Thrones on things, on established games seems to work. The Game of Thrones Catan is actually, like, really cool. They had, like, the wall, they had the
That's
White
cool.
Walkers that came in, so it added elements. So I'm
Yeah.
interested to see how this turns out. And last on the list, there was a bunch of stuff, but the one other one that seemed super exciting to me was One Key by the makers of Mysterium.
Oh yeah, Mysterium's
alright.
a great game.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see. Mysterium is great for what it is. I think it's got a little bit of overhead. Like when I've tried to teach it to people, especially non-gamers, like you can
Yeah.
play the game. Like I've seen it on tabletop and it's like super fun.
Yeah.
But getting into it, they're like, what's all these bits? And there's a lot of stuff.
Were you teaching the English rules?
I was gonna say, we have a friend that is like a purist. It's like
Oh.
the English version's awful. You gotta play the original.
Interesting.
Play the
Well,
original
so
version.
in Mysterium, that whole thing of the clairvoyance tokens, where
Yeah.
that's all in the English version, not in the Polish or Ukrainian version.
Do they not have those tokens?
They just
at
don't
all?
have them.
Oh.
All you do is you guess who you're supposed to be, and that's it.
Yeah,
And
that seems
apparently
a lot better.
Yeah, I was apparently that
yeah.
makes the game better to the point where our friend
more focused.
Yes, yeah.
Our friend like swears by it, like refuses to play. It's like no. So
I was saying it's interesting too because when I saw it on tabletop, they were actually like working together
Yep,
for
yep.
each clue, and then in the actual written rules, it says like, oh, you have your thing,
Yep.
and then there's a timer or something too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, the only time I've ever played it, we have not used the clairvoyance, not used the timer.
Yeah.
And the whole point is to discuss with your fellow friends
Yeah.
about what you think the clue is.
Right.
Because honestly, like as the ghost, like you would just want them to get it.
Yeah.
And you're like, you'll hand over a clue, and someone will be like, "Oh, it's that," and you're like, "Nailed it!" And then like somebody else at the table will be like, "Oh, well, what about this?" And you're like, "Stop talking. You had it."
Part, yeah, it's
But
just
you
like
can't-
code names with that,
You
right?
can't say
Oh,
anything.
Yeah.
They're just like, it's like, oh, and then they get super into it. It's like, you see the pattern on the carpet over here. It's like circles.
And
it's
you're like,
like,
"I didn't
what
know
do
there
you-
was carpet. Just go with it."
I am so bad at hiding my face in situations like that. Like in Codenames, I pretty much just have to be like,
It's
Oh.
good. I
So,
just,
but do we know how like Mysterium One Key is?
and they had the, I think it was more fantasy for the thing. I remember looking at it. It's like basically using the same concept and like giving
Okay.
the clues, the cards and stuff, and guessing.
I mean, I
think
could see other ways. I don't know if One Key does it, but like you could do stuff with prophecies. Like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
could very easily kind of slide that same gameplay into a fantasy genre.
Yeah, yeah.
there's also, I know it was mentioned last week, but Stranger Things D&D, which is interesting because we've been talking a lot about D&D and how they keep expanding
Yeah.
Yeah.
yet another way.
I think the most exciting, like we talked about last week, but then all the pictures were released,
Yeah.
and it's just like looks amazing. People, the reaction to it was really good. People are
Yeah.
really excited.
The Demon Gorgon figure looked really, really neat. I saw a nice, like, painted up version of it.
Yeah.
I got no segue. I was going to say, speaking
No,
of, like,
come on,
crazy
do that.
plant
Come
on,
monster
Mr.
thing.
Segue.
No, I
Oh,
got
you
nothing.
can connect these two things.
got
Come
nothing.
on.
Speaking
This
of
is, like, next
fantasy,
level.
Speaking of
you know what
monsters.
happens in fantasy? Magic.
I was going to go to Pocket Monsters.
Oh, never mind.
Oh,
Sorry.
I
yeah.
was going to say, speaking of monsters, we could talk about monsters that fit in your pocket, a.k.a. Pocket Monsters, a.k.a. Pokemans.
Okay, did that just blow anyone's mind? Like Pokemon's pocket monsters.
I watched
It did a
whole-
little
That was a
bit,
while
yeah.
ago.
That was...
I
Yeah.
had never.
I think I heard of it before, but I remember when I first heard it and being like my mind being blown. So you're welcome. If you had not known that before, that's what it's in the pocket. Although they're not really in the pocket, they're like in the balls. And the
But
balls.
But they
the
can.
pocket.
But then
Yeah.
they can be in your pocket.
Okay. But how do you fit 200 of those?
A lot of them,
You
a lot
have
of them get
to not
transferred
wear.
over to a machine.
You have to not wear women's jeans.
Okay, yes, that
is
makes
the
sense.
problem.
Also, they're just like go in some other dimension or something like that.
They do.
Pocket of
But
holding.
this weekend, coming up this weekend, you can show people your Pokemans because Pokemon Day. I always
say it right?
No, I will always say it as Pokemans. That's my Pokemans. Let me show you them. I'm an old internet user.
You're never going to be able to work for that company.
No, because I keep calling them Pokemans. Hey, I'm Mike with Pokemans.
Come see my Pokemon.
See my Pokemon.
You're in my pocket over here. Not at all weird.
Kristen is now regretting the fact that she's a full-on director this week. And it's like, why did I
She's shaking
step?
her head.
Why did I step away? She's like, I could have
Yeah.
not paid attention. And now
You
I'm
just cut
paying-
that mic.
Yeah.
Pokemon Day is happening. There's so many things happening. I need to steal your notes because they're not on my notes.
Well,
Yeah.
so Pokemon Day was the
Right,
27th.
Pokemon
like-
Day. There you go.
Yeah, that's the official like celebratory day thing.
But this weekend, you can go to GameStop and Best Buy, or if you're in Canada, EB Games, and you can learn to play the card game. There's like a play and trade game. It's going to be based around the latest expansion, Sun and Moon team up, free oversized booster pack with cards. There's so many things happening. Twitch.tv is going to have a marathon, and the cable channel Disney XD is also going to be sharing fan favorites. We're going to be talking about Funko a lot this episode. They released a Bulbasaur Funko Pop. It is adorable. If
Yeah.
you have not seen it, it is
Legit.
stupidly cute.
I mean, Bulbasaur kind of already is.
But
Yeah.
as a Funko,
But
it is
now you-
adorable.
Yeah.
Now you can throw it at people.
Pokemon Funkos?
There are very few. So there's one Pikachu. There's the Bulbasaur, and then there is a Pikachu coming out that is him like Scrooge McDucking and like gold.
Yeah.
He's like, it's like Luck of the Irish.
You have a lot of
Where's
knowledge of these
Eevee?
Pokemon Funkos.
I didn't have a lot. You should have.
He has a lot of knowledge about Funko.
You should see
Okay.
my house.
Gotcha.
Our house is. I have 2 in my bag. I should thought about bringing them.
So we
setting
have
them up
lots
there.
of Love Letter. You have lots
There.
of Funko.
Lots of fun.
We have lots of everything.
Well, so the events to teach the game are actually really exciting. So for those of you who don't know too much about the Pokemon TCG, this is the game that hooks children into TCGs and adults too in a lot of cases. This is the gateway.
This is it. Parents, if your children are getting hooked into a game,
It's
the
Pokemon.
It's
Yeah,
the
this is what you
Pokemans.
gotta watch out for. But the thing, so kids, like, they've got cards, they got Pokemon, they've seen the shows, they're like, I got Pokemon. The actual game is a little complex.
Yeah. No, yeah.
So it's a TCG, and there's a lot of stuff going there. So parents, like, kids see the thing, they want to buy the starter deck, they get the deck, they get it home, their parents are like, I want to play this game. The parents are like, I can't help you with that. I don't.
Go to
I
eBay.
regret everything.
Go to GameStop this weekend. Learn to play. Come
So
back
like
and teach me.
kids and the parents, like in mocks, we would have a lot of parents come in. We'd teach them how to play the game with their kids. So even if the kids didn't get it, the parents would know, and they could kind of guide the kids on the journey. So it's really cool to have these events, these specific teaching events to help people. All the people already have all the stuff,
Yeah.
and then to be able to play the games goes along with
I also think it's really interesting that it's at GameStop and Best Buy, not at conventions or local game stores and stuff like
Yeah.
that. It seems like it's clearly pushed at people who have been buying the video games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And kind of
Yeah.
want to take a step into something they can do with their friends around a table,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is also great.
Well, I mean,
vice-
there's lots of Pokemon, like the game on the Switch right now is super popular. Pokemon Go, of course, is
I don't think
still
Pokemon has
booming.
been unpopular
There-
for what, like the last 10 years.
But they're just like expanding that audience even more into their card
Yeah.
game.
You know.
get their fingers and everything.
Speaking of getting fingers and everything, let's talk about War at the Spark. Talking about War of the Spark, where Nicol Bolas is going to just decimate every single Planeswalker. Magic the Gathering teased and had this amazing trailer for War of the Spark.
So good.
And if you have not seen it, it is insanely good. For what little they show you, it is epic. It's like 36 stained glass pictures of Planeswalkers. The internet is going nuts trying to
36
decipher.
is a very specific number, Mike.
That's what the internet told me. There are people counting this number.
There are 36 Planeswalkers.
That seems like a lot.
I think there's going to. I think this is going to be like Planeswalkers Infinity War, where like everyone is going to die.
Oh yeah, because like at least one of those panes of stained glass shattered in the video, right?
Well, and then what I love, and this is like my favorite thing about it, was the aesthetic in this trailer, is they have all these candles, and like all the candles blow out except for one in the middle, and then the smoke on the two ends come up and form Nicol Bolas's horns, and I'm just like, oh my god,
Well,
Also the
and,
jerk, okay?
he's amazing.
and there was a shot that made it look like one of my favorite Planeswalkers might be returning.
Ooh, which one?
Garrick,
There
who
it
we
is.
haven't seen in forever.
Didn't he go all bad for a little while?
No, he did not go bad. He became amazing.
Yes. He
Yeah.
was taken over by darkness.
The Liliana's Veil Curse. She was like, hey, you should have some of this. And he was like, all right. Oh, this is amazing.
So I already loved Garrick, but I can
I'm
get behind a
little
bad boy.
chaotic evil over here, like into Bolas, into Garrick, like. So
Garrick-
Bolas, big dragon, mean, punched
Garrick was
everyone,
the
punched
first-
Gideon.
Garrick
Sure.
was the first Planeswalker I ever had, and green's my favorite color to play, so I was like absolutely in love with him. And I got really sad when he went dark, but there's a part of me that's like, bad boys always get my heart. So like, I still have to love him,
Yeah.
even when he turns to darkness.
Yeah. It's fair.
With all of this coming, there's going to be some Magic OP changes. I'm sorry, OP changes.
I knew you were waiting for that.
Yeah, I was. TableTakes,
Yeah.
presented by Gen Con. So there's the Magic Weekend, WotC is announced as an innovation event that happened last fall. We talked about there's going to be this sort of like a test of rules changes coming out in London later this year.
Yeah.
And Emma, you brought this up because I was like, I want to talk about this, and Emma was like, let's actually, hey, it's not in the notes. Can we bring this up? They're going to change the Mulligan rule.
The Mulligan rule, yeah.
We're going to test. I'm sorry, they're going to test the Mulligan rule.
So it's funny. A lot. Magic is an old game. Magic has been around for a long time, and there's a lot of, and when they made it, you know, they were there in the basement or whatever, like have this grand vision, like fling spells, like creatures, like have things, like they weren't as experienced game designers. And
What I love is Peter's like around the corner here somewhere.
So we're just making all of this up.
I
We're
mean,
like, and then
so-
and Peter Atkinson like dressed up as a dragon is what I heard. Like to test, he was like, no, this is what this is what it has to
and they
look
set things
like.
on fire.
They wore
Yeah.
pointy hats.
Yeah.
Peter actually has pictures of him wearing a pointy wizard's hat, waving a wand, being
Well,
like,
it's been
this is
fun.
how the game needs to be played.
Well, so I mean, it was this brave new world. Like TCGs weren't a thing. They didn't have all this like learning and information. And over what is it now? 25 years.
We're on
Yeah.
26.
25 was a year or two ago. Yeah.
Yeah, so like there's like people's understanding, the game has like, they've kept making cards every single year, and there's just so much happening now that there's a lot of stuff. I'm sure if they could go back now, you know, like, oh wow, just like shuffling all your resources in with all your things has some issues sometimes.
Well,
like,
but also there's a benefit to that because
Yeah.
the variance keeps it very exciting, and
Yeah.
it means that even a new player can win.
Yeah.
yeah.
Like, I think it's actually a really important factor.
So I think for having actual tournament play, having these mulligans, and having like these rules that make it's interesting because you're saying like, oh, the variance is great, but when you're doing like organized play in tournaments, like you trying to reduce that variance. So how do you
Sure.
balance the two things?
Yeah, but it is probably worth noting that if Magic players were united around the mana economy being broken, it would have been fixed. So
Yeah.
I think the fact that over the history of the game, you know, there's the mulligan rule.
Yeah.
There's the current mulligan rule, which is like, you know, mulligan and then scry.
I
Yeah.
really like the
and
current one.
now there's a slightly new variant, but it seems to me that like I don't think Wizards or the play community in general, despite it being kind of one of the things that is always kind of teased Magic about.
Yeah.
Clearly, you know, Magic fans don't think that it's a fundamentally broken idea.
Yeah.
Just something that needs to be tweaked.
Yeah, because it's fascinating. It's like, because we've all had those games, you know, where you're mana flooded,
Yep.
or
Yeah.
where you're mana screwed. So it's
well,
a
and
thing.
it sucks.
Yeah.
But it's also an important component of the game.
But we've also had those ones where you're like almost mana screwed, and then you top deck that
Yep.
land, and you have that dramatic moment. So it's got both of the things to it. But the fact that they're actually looking to test some things and be like, hey, you know, especially in tournament play, and
Right.
especially because it's cast now.
Yeah.
You know, you have this like mythic championship broadcast on Twitch. You don't want to have games where someone just like loses because they
Yeah.
have 20 lands, right? So having this new mulligan rule to be able to just drop to 7 instead of draw one less card and put the additional cards on the bottom, so you have your whole hand to choose from, but then you can kind of tune that hand.
Yeah.
And
Well, but even with that, you're still going to have variance, right? It's not
Yeah.
like the variance is removed.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so just out of curiosity, as somebody who doesn't play a ton of Magic, and the mulligan rules both of them are still kind of new to me. How is this rule actually different than the scry option?
Okay, so you have your card of your hand of 7 cards. You decide like you have
Yep.
like 6 lands in it, or you have no lands in that hand. You discard, reshuffle, draw up to 6. Like now you have one less option. Like 6 with the scry is pretty good, but we're really like that's perfect. Like
Well, and
that's,
a scry means that you get to look at the top card of your deck and decide if you're going to put it back on top or if you're going to put it on the bottom. Yeah.
So like 6 with a scry I think is perfect.
Yeah.
The issue comes when you have to go down to 5 cards. So you have 5 cards, you only have that one, and sometimes that 5 is like pretty much no one ever mulligans down to 4. But that's not because like, oh, but this 5 is great. Like you
Right.
get down to the 5 and then you just like still have nothing and like, oh, I guess I keep this.
This is
Yeah.
this is
So-
what I have.
So at that 5 mulligan, what's really going to change is you're going to have 7 cards still, and you're still going to have all those options, and you have one more than you would with the scry, and put
Yeah.
those 2 on the bottom, and you just have a very good chance of getting something.
So the main
playable.
difference between the scry, the current scry rule, and the new one is that scry, you're still seeing the same volume of cards, but you're
Yes.
able to construct your hand of
Yes.
Yeah.
6 or 5 or however many cards
Yeah.
out of the full 7.
Yes.
So
Well,
that you are more likely to be able to create that hand that will actually work.
Yeah, at 5 cards, you're actually seeing one more card. So at 6 cards, you're seeing the same amount. So 6 is fine, but at 5, with this new rule, you're seeing one more card.
Okay.
So I
Yeah,
think
which
it's gonna
is
be
really great.
powerful.
Cool.
Yeah.
The one thing I am concerned about is this does add another step into the learning curve of like teaching somebody the game.
Yeah.
But I think that's something that you can sort of wait until someone's ready
Yeah,
for that
sure.
rule.
Yeah.
There's a lot you don't tell people the first time you're
Yeah.
teaching magic. It's like, oh, that is your hand, or like, oh yeah, you don't have a great hand, how about you just get a new one? There's a lot of stuff.
And that's one of the biggest flaws that people make when they're teaching somebody Magic is they overcomplicate it with all these rules that like really, like when you first teach somebody Magic, you just need to teach them the basic concept to see if they're interested. You don't have to put everything about the game on top of them.
Well, the nice thing about that is if you want to learn to play Magic the Gathering, you can check in with our own Kristen Jensen Tuesdays at 4 p.m. on twitch.tv/GenConTV to learn Magic the Gathering, and she plays Magic the Gathering Arena.
That's true. And if you if you prefer to learn via reading, I also have some stuff that teaches people Magic.
Where can we find this stuff?
tabletop-test.com. I have a series called Beginner Planeswalker Guide that teaches people Magic as well.
Nice.
So you can have the articles up on one screen while you're listening to Kristen on the other screen.
Yeah.
There you go, get a twofer. Speaking of twofers, there's no good segue for that. Wizards also announced no more MSRP, no more manufacturer suggested retail price. How is that going to change the game? Someone who works in retail? Someone who used to work in distribution in retail?
So this is very interesting. I think there's no way to know yet, like whether it will be, like, I don't think it will necessarily be like great. Everyone's like things are gonna like change for the better. I think we have to wait and see if there's like any negative effects from this. I think there's a few things with MSRP. I know from a retail standpoint, like we would have people come into mocks and they kind of everyone has a sense of how much things cost. And they can see kind of how much prices are going up and down because we do raise the prices of packs because of the secondary market. If a set has just like crazy powerful cards that people want to pay a lot of money for, then people tend to raise the price of the packs because people are selling those cards back for a lot of money.
Yeah.
But the other thing is when people have a sense of the MSRP, not every local game store is going to sell the cards at the same price. If you just walk into a store, you've been away for a little bit, and you're like, oh, $7 for a pack of Magic. I guess that's what they cost now. Having the sense of MSRP does make you're like, oh wait, the MSRP is like $2.99 for those.
Right.
That's a little weird. So you have that little bit of consumer protection there.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing here is it's all tied in with you can like just buy packs and boxes of Magic on Amazon or like at Target in different places. So how is this going to affect local game stores being able to price at a price that is sustainable?
Well, and even beyond that, it's going to drastically affect distribution, which already just like different distributors are sort of fighting over like reaching the lowest price. But it's just completely going to change the fact that like there was an MSRP to point to be like, well, this is like what it's expected to cost. And now that that's gone, who knows what's going to happen? The prices might skyrocket. The prices might go super low for a while. It's really hard to know what that give and take between the stores and distributor is going to be, which is just a whole new thing.
Wild West.
What I'd be curious to look at is I know there are other like consumer products and industries that have moved away from MSRP. I just don't know what they are. I'd be really curious to look at them and see what happened. And I suspect that there is a period of huge fluctuation and then it kind of evens out somewhere. And I would be very curious to see what impact that had on those industries long term.
Yeah, definitely, and if we want to start looking at Magic, obviously things are going to be kind of weird for the prices, but if you want to maybe get a free box of Magic, tune into twitch.tv/GenConTV Tuesdays at 4 p.m. and watch Kristen Jensen stream MTG Arena.
For potentially
I
free
challenge
box.
you to try to tie that into every topic we do the rest of the
I
show.
challenge you not to.
We do other shows, just letting you know, and Kristen gives away boxes and boxes of Magic, so just,
Speaking of Magic,
Ravnica Inquisition.
Yeah, what is that?
A new board game from WizKids. We already talked about how great WizKids is, but they made Heroes of Dominaria, which I actually thought was the best Magic board game that's came out. They've tried all sorts of different board game ways to tie Magic in with board games. Some of them have not been the greatest. I thought Heroes of Dominaria was really great.
Well, the designers of that were the designers of Lords of Waterdeep.
Yeah.
So it's it's going to be a solid game.
And it was very similar similar feel.
Can I do a quick funny story about Heroes of Dominaria?
Please.
Sure.
We actually, so I thought it was a great game too. We played wrong the first time because you're supposed to start. Supposed to start with mana on each of the locations.
Yeah.
We did not do that. We just did the earning and you get there. So we were mana screwed in Heroes of Dominaria.
I got to playtest
kinda
it
funny.
before it was a thing.
Nice.
At Gamma, I actually got to
Oh,
sit
sweet,
and
yeah.
playtest it and was like communicating with them afterwards, which was really awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, I'm excited that they're making another Magic game. It makes me feel like, it was probably successful if they're going down this route again. Everybody loves Ravnica, so seeing them do a Ravnica board game. It's social deduction. What I find the most interesting is that it's 15 to 30 minutes, which is like super fast for a board game. So
Yeah.
I'm really
Yeah.
excited to see what that's like. Players get to choose if they're playing on the side of Gatewatch or if they're playing on Nicol Bolas's team, which will be super interesting because Mike and I will never be on the same team.
So, but they get to choose because a lot of the social deduction games you are assigned a role.
Yeah,
it's
you
interesting.
can
You get to
choose.
choose.
Yeah.
Probably keep it secret, my guess is.
There's not a lot of information beyond this yet.
Intriguing though.
But yeah, I'm super interested. Definitely a game that I will want on my shelf.
And you get to pick your guilds too.
Speaking of Ravnica too and how everybody loves it, I just realized last night that the Art of Magic Ravnica book is out.
Ooh.
And I ordered it because like I've been ordering all the.
Yeah.
If anybody like watching loves like Magic or loves like fantasy worlds and design and art and kind of
yeah.
a world guide, the Art of Magic books are just fantastic.
They're
Like I
really
really just want to
So
just
good.
take one and put it on the table and be like, we're playing D&D. Here's the setting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of
figure it
criminal
out.
how good magic art is.
And you can now
Like,
do that.
just-
Guilds of Ravnica,
Yep,
the D&D book,
Yep.
and you,
Yeah, I mean, like
it's
if
great.
you picked up Guilds of Ravnica and you're like, where's the rest of the world? Go buy the art book because it's got all the art and it's got all the text. It's just
Yeah.
fantastic.
This is
Also, if you'd like to see more Ravnica Allegiance, you can tune in Tuesdays at 4 p.m. on
Stop.
twitch.tv/. Yes, there it is. Derek dared me to when I got there.
there.
But what about the other Magic changes? What about the change to the championship? How you qualify for the big tournaments?
Yeah.
Did
that
anyone?
is- I know they put out a video. I have not watched it. I started a new job, which is why I was not here last week, and I've just been swamped.
I have a
So,
Kickstarter coming out Tuesday, so that's what I've been doing.
There you go.
So they've changed,
Yeah.
apparently.
Things are different.
Yeah.
Well, so there's new. Wow, I'm just gonna go out on a limb there. I think there's a digital element to it now, as opposed to like just the events, like the physical ones that you have to go to. So they're broadening the net really, because for like competitive tournament Magic, it has been very focused on like these are the specific events you go to. Like you have to get the points to like level up. Basically, there's this whole like RPG system of becoming a world championship Magic player. So it seems like they're opening that stuff. up a
And Wizards
little bit.
had made announcements about investing in esports and really
Oh,
pushing
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
pushing
huge.
Magic as an esports element.
Yeah.
So it sounds like maybe they're integrating some of that with the overall Magic Championship.
Well, and I think they're starting to realize that they need a little bit more accessibility into the tournament scene.
Yes, exactly.
If they, want to continue being a game for everybody.
I want to touch briefly on the organized play. You talked about it a little bit, but the fact for the pre-release, they're supposedly doing a
Yeah, there was
thing.
a lot. Yeah.
So like, and they're like, and this as a person, and like some of the people we have here have worked Magic events extensively. And for a pre-release, it's already an intense thing for a local game store to put on, where you have to have the judges for it, you have to have all the
Yeah.
scheduling, and now Wizards is going to be like, okay, cool, and now something's going to happen during that. It's going to be
Yeah.
a thing.
What's
For,
going to
I was an event coordinator for
if you have a
local game
planeswalker
store.
out on your table, rip it in half because the planeswalker's dead.
But pre-releases are so exciting. So I actually
Yeah.
got into Magic because I was working at a store
Yeah.
during a pre-release, and I was like, whatever this is amazing, and I need more of it in my life.
I will say, I love doing pre-releases, even for, I'm fairly experienced playing Magic, it's a lot for me, and it's a very intense, very competitive, very traditional format.
Yeah.
If they can make it a little more accessible by having something, that's not just, grind your brain for was like
6
9
events.
games or the,
Oh, yeah.
for the actual
Yeah, no,
games you go
that's a
through. You
lot.
do like 4, you have like 3 or 4 matchups of like 3 games each, so like 12 games in a row potentially is a lot. So if they can do something that's like, I think for people who are not as experienced with it, it could be even more fun if it wasn't quite as intense.
I think they've been trying for a long time.
I think the only card game pre-release I've actually been to was for Vampire: The Eternal Struggle back in the day, and that was just exciting because like that game was so tied to the storyline of the RPG and whatnot that you would come like, 'cause I think I went to the set that had the Assamites and the Setites, and everyone was just like, I just want to see what like it was literally just like we want to see these things that we know and love in card format.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, and I actually prefer going to a pre-release having not looked at the set at all. So having like no idea what I'm going into. Like maybe looking at the mechanics beforehand just so I don't get super confused.
Yeah.
But like having not seen cards until I open them in packs is so exciting.
Wait, are you saying you don't pore over LSV's limited set reviews so that you can min-max the pre-release and beat up all those poor children who are playing for the first time?
All right. We're gonna we can keep discussing Magic at great length. We need to.
Before we move on,
we're
two
being
quick
told
things.
to wrap it up.
Oh, sorry.
Otherwise, I'm not cutting you off
Great.
on accident this time. We actually were told by our director that's enough because we clearly went from headlines into topics with that. We still have a lot to cover. I really want to still talk about the Forest Brazan and Funko stuff soon. But let's get into our bundles and Kickstarter real quick. Bundle Boss,
Bundle
Fake
Boss.
Christian, hashtag not Christian.
Be a boss.
Talk to us about
So we got
some
2 bundles this week.
2 bundles this
Two
week.
bundles. First is the return of something we talked about previously. I don't know if it's the exact same bundle, but Humble Bundle has another Pathfinder bundle. So I think the max tier is $18, and you get over $500 worth of books.
So insane.
It's got the core book. It's got a lot of the ultimate guides. It's got an entire campaign arc, adventure path, whatever I think they're calling it. The top tier also has the Starfinder core rulebook.
Yes, yeah.
So if you have at all been curious about where Pathfinder is, spend $18 and then you will have all of it.
you will
Which is
know.
amazing.
That's a good deal.
It's really great. We talked about like, oh, they're doing $500 worth of stuff for 18. Like, how does that make sense for anyone? But like for me, I'm probably not going to run my own Pathfinder campaign, but I'll probably buy this just to have it. And then if anyone ever wants to do a campaign or do like on Roll20 or something, I'm like, oh, I have all this stuff now. So I think they can get a lot of people into it. I don't think they're.
I think the
losing
key
a lot
too
out.
is that Humble Bundle is known for video games.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think this is very much positioned as a super inexpensive way for somebody who is not in the hobby to take a toe and dip it in.
Oh yeah.
It also includes the Starfinder core book, so if you're into sci-fi,
Pathfinder in space.
Yeah.
So the other bundle is on Bundle of Holding. And this is actually a very interesting one, and it only, I think, has maybe 7 hours left, because it was a very short bundle.
Get on it.
It's their 6th anniversary, so to celebrate their birthday, they went and got a bunch of games that you can get for free around the internet, put them together in a bundle that entirely benefits charity. I believe it's the RPG Creators Relief Fund. So the whole bundle, all the revenue goes to charity, and they want you to kind of go there and celebrate their birthday with them by buying it and donating it to charity.
That's awesome.
And there's some really, really good games in there. Again, a lot of them, they're all free, but a lot of them have garnered a lot of attention. There's Lasers and Feelings, which is it's a very like it's.
I like it. I mean, I don't even know what it is.
Your
but
traits are lasers and feelings, and you accomplish all of your problems
even
either
better
with
than I
lasers or
thought.
feelings. Yeah, it's great. It's I think the double clicks really, really love it.
Nice.
Nice.
Lady Blackbird is another one that's in there, and that is anybody who likes the design of role-playing games needs to check out Lady Blackbird just because it's like almost an experiment of how minimalist can you create a rich traditional RPG experience with almost. Like it's not here's some rules, create some characters. It's you're given a character, pretty much all the rules you'll need to know are on the sheet in some way, or just and it's comes with like a history interplay. It's a very particular scenario, very, very exciting and cool. You throw it on the table and go basically.
Nice.
So it's also got Mythender, I think, which is just if you want to kill gods and have a big bucket of dice,
There.
that's your game.
Sounds great.
So it's
Already
just
love.
a collection of prominent free indie games that you can pay to benefit charity.
That's
Nice.
cool. That's super neat. All right, those are your bundles for this week. Let's move over to Kickstarter. Keep us Kickstarter corner. Hashtag Kickstarter Queen. What do we got this week? What's ending this week?
So a lot of exciting things. Yokohama Duel Deluxeified edition. So this is from Tasty Minstrel Games, which you might know from Steamworks, Flip City, or of course Yokohama. But they're doing a 2-player version of this popular game. The character art looks really awesome. That was what I was the most excited for looking at it. Besides that, we have the Zion. I did it again.
It's okay. You're so young. You're so young.
Zine, another part of Zine Quest. 2 Apocalypse World zines. Apocalypse World Burned Over Hackbook and Extended Ref Book. This is sort of like a designer commentary, sort of deleted scenes, if you're into that kind of stuff. There's only 3 days left on that one.
There's also hours left on the Yokohama one. Too.
Oh, so
Get on it.
Get on that right now.
After the stream ends, don't leave the stream to go buy it. Wait till we're done.
On your second monitor.
Yeah. Oh yeah, second monitor.
If you leave, you might not hear about Terror Below.
Oh.
Which is basically Tremors, the board game. From Renegade Games. Renegade Games is great. They have so many amazing titles. Clank, Fuse, Raiders and Explorers of the North Sea. There we go. Ex Libris. It's a game of government experiments gone wild in the Nevada desert.
Oh yeah, you weren't kidding about this being Tremors the board game. Also amazing
Tremors
movie.
the non-infringing.
And apparently the board is funky because it's not like a square board. I think it's like a die-cut board that's kind of shaped like one of the weird alien eggs or something.
Ooh, that's super fun.
Yeah, it looks really cool. In the Hall of the Mountain King, this is a Kickstarter. There's 6 days left. Territory Denial. It looks really interesting. There's lots of little bits, which is what caught my eye the most about it.
Gorgeous art too.
Yeah, and they've also added co-op and solo modes, so there's 3 different modes that you can play it,
Nice.
which is always awesome when a game is more versatile like that. You had some
Trolls.
feelings?
Yeah, it's got a really good flavor to it. So it's got trolls going on there. You're under the mountain, but not like dwarves, traditional. So there's a little bit mixing things up, and you're making these huge halls and tunnels. So a little bit building a kingdom element to it. Which is
and I know
cool.
there's different kinds of trolls.
Yeah.
There's ice trolls, fire trolls. So yeah, it looked pretty cool.
That's fun. Yeah.
Pocket games from the 80s. Steve Jackson is resurrecting some retro tabletop games in VHS clamshells, which is super cool.
See, I
You
would.
need to explain what that is.
No, I mean, basically, I think there's plenty of people watching that grew up with those Disney movies and the clamshells. To me, I would get it just to have that because, I love that look. There's a DVD recently just came out that actually looks like an old clamshell, and
you
I want
got
to buy it just for the art.
You got me a notebook. It's a
actually
the
bought
Beauty
it.
and the Beast clamshell.
Nice.
Yeah,
Have you played Lizard Riders?
I've not played
Because
later.
it's a game you should absolutely play because
Yeah.
it literally is it's packaged like a VHS box set from the 80s.
Yeah.
And
The-
each character is a VHS tape you pull out and you
That's
open
so-
it.
that's
it's
rad.
really, really cool.
Neat.
Yeah, it looks really cool.
All right.
But what are some of the games?
So there's Crash City, Necromancer, Car Wars, Truck Stop, Undead, Raid on Iron, Illuminati. That's probably the most well-known one on the list. Ogre.
Classics.
So
and
I want to
Battlesuits.
know. I always see my friends that bought the Ogre the $700 giant edition that's bigger than this studio, and I'm like, how are they going to put that in a tiny?
I think it's Ogre is a long game and has lots of versions. I think the really expensive one,
Yeah.
I think has minis and is really
Yeah, it's-
expensive.
Yeah.
I
This
can't
I think
fit
is
in
just
the
a little,
box.
this is little tiny cuts
Okay. Well, there you go. All right. What's
in
we
the VHS box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I will admit this is the Kickstarter that I was the most excited about for this week. The Demon Collective Volume 1. So there's 1 week left in this. It's 4 horror RPG adventures written and illustrated and edited by trans and non-binary gamers.
Nice.
I'm all about that. Super exciting to see, neurodiversity showcased. I'm sure they're going to be really great, worth checking out. I've already backed it, actually.
Nice.
So yeah, that is a neat one to check out. Yeah, that's it for Kickstarter.
All right.
Has this agenda become just like a guide for all of you to
No, this is-
figure out what to back on Kickstarter?
I
at
said
this
the
point?
first week, this is so bad for my wallet.
really
Like,
bad.
I'm spending so much money just from the stuff I see
I
on the
already
show.
do this. That just adds
Yeah.
to it even more. Yeah.
All right. Before we get going, obviously we talked a lot. We sort of our headlines sort of started to expand into topics, which we knew was going to happen, especially with all the Magic news that came out. We do want to quickly touch and sort of end the show with probably I think one of the biggest impacts to actually we're going to say one of the biggest impacts to all of us because they're a Seattle-based group, two Seattle-based groups
Yeah.
that have sort of merged together. Funko, makers of such fine pops and cereals and T-shirts and pencil toppers and mugs and all kinds of stuff, just acquired Forest Pruzan Creative, makers of Villainous, the Bob Ross game. They did the Home Alone game.
Yep.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Home Alone Netrunner. Basically, you haven't played. We talked
They,
about
they
it.
seem
Home
to,
Alone Netrunner.
they seem to have cornered that market on taking an IP
Yes.
and making a game for that IP that is itself a fantastic game,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
opposed to just applying an IP.
Slap an IP on
So
it.
this is, to me, this is huge because Funko, as a fine purveyor of Funko items, they have so they've already got the pops, right, which
Yeah.
are just everywhere. They have started expanding. They do pencil toppers, keychains, blind boxes, blind bags. They actually do. They have cereals which come with a pop inside. They have a bowl, right? It's a
That's a
cereal
real
bowl. It is. They have a bowl with a spoon. That's
They
like,
are. It
you
is
know,
at least like a corn pop cereal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
No, it's actually
great.
just all prototype Funkos. You're just chewing on plastic. But they've also, and so I've noticed this before. Tifa and I we bought a Funko Advent calendar, and the box is big enough that I was like, man, you can actually like make a game out of this. You can actually like because it came with a nice
Yeah.
little background, and I thought, wow, this can go to board games, which means Funko is now going to start getting into board game territory.
Which is
Well,
a
how-
huge move for them.
Huge move for them.
How long until they release the Funko Brutal Combat Miniatures game, where you just use your Funkos and march them across the board?
So, not I don't think far off because they just recently have put out what they're calling like the Dark Ages or Middle Ages or Brutal Ages, and it's like Batman and He-Man, but like if they were in the medieval. So it's like they
for the
also have
Funkos?
for the Funkos. So
Yeah.
Funko's already also they have like what they call reaction figures, which are meant to look like old 80s figures, but they also are putting out legit action figures that are like.
Has anybody
like
ever said that
Caveman
Funko
Batman.
is the McFarlane Toys of the modern age?
No.
They
Because
have,
like-
have now.
I mean, McFarlane Toys is still around.
but do you remember at their height when there
Yeah.
would be some new variant of Batman or Spawn that
There
came
are
out?
still people out there
So-
who are super into.
Well, they were always
Mc-
super
yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
And to me it was like, oh, there's some, and then not even that, but like Kiss movies.
Yeah.
I remember there was Planet Terror Grindhouse action figures done by McFarlane Toys. Kiss action figures
Yep.
done by McFarlane Toys. I will completely agree with you
There.
that I think Funko is becoming the
Is
McFarlane
shoulder that
toy.
mantle.
Yeah.
But I'm super excited for Villainous because I think the mechanics of that game are so great, and I think that it can apply to other IPs. Like that's what I want to see.
Well, and that's the thing with Funko already having access to all these IPs.
So many IPs.
Force Pruzan, they kind of had to go out and like work and get them, but Funko already has all
Yeah.
of these IPs. And I mean, the interesting thing about Force Pruzan is, like, you might be wondering, like you say, like I tell a lot of people about it, I've never heard of it. So you're saying that they're making games like Villainous and stuff, but they always worked with publishers.
Right.
Yeah.
So like they would never have their name on the box.
And
Yeah.
so,
So that's a question too. Like, is Funko going to be the publisher? Or are they still?
And I have a question. I'm sorry for cutting
Yeah.
you off, but I do want our audience to know Emma is actually a playtester for Forest Pruzan.
Yeah.
So there are things that she can and cannot say. So if she does all of a sudden stop herself, that's the reason why. And if you guys
No
are like,
comment.
wow, she really knows a lot about this stuff. That's why I just want to sort of give that out there because it's something we've mentioned previously before, but because we're now specifically talking about this, I want to make sure that our audience knows that Emma does have insider knowledge about that.
The interesting thing to me is that I think we've seen a lot of companies like release some games or dabble in some games, but you don't buy a design studio, particularly one with this pedigree, if you are just trying to see if board games are a thing you want to
Right.
do.
Yeah.
If that's
No,
some- that's like that's the
They are
move you
serious.
yeah that's the move you take when you're like, we're getting into board games.
Yep.
We want to do IPs and we want to do them right from the gate correctly,
Yep.
and we want to do it super strong. So it's exciting.
I'm very excited for all of my friends over at Forest Pruzan, and I am like, I heard that news and I was like, you have my attention even further now because I already love what they do, and I love Funko. Like, there's no,
I saw you go to get the wrestler.
I
tag team
did.
Funko.
I went and I got because they matched so well. I went and waited in line in the morning to get a wrestler, Jeff Hardy, to sign a Funko Pop, and it's now at my desk at work.
I love it.
My autographed Jeff Hardy box of Funko.
Well, and I'm excited to see Funko doing more than just pops too. I mean, they do other things, but this
they're
is
known
like
for
this,
pops.
Yeah.
This is huge, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's huge just for the board game industry too, because I will say like one thing that Force Present does is it gives stable full-time jobs with benefits to game designers, to board game designers.
so
Like
good.
that is so rare in the industry,
Yeah.
and for Funko to be doubling down on this and being like, is this going to become more like the video game industry where you can like grow up and say like, I'm going to be a professional board game designer who like goes to a day job, which is board game design.
And you want to talk about game designers that they hire? Like they just hired one of the designers of Lords of Waterdeep full time as a game designer. So like they're just continuing to build their stable. And when I saw that he joined, I was like, that is a good
my
get
gosh,
for
that's so
Force
exciting.
Present.
They are putting themselves in a really good spot.
I hope they still do workshopping because I would love to be able to.
Yeah, seriously.
Just getting people to like. It's so hard as a designer to see the game. Like you get kind of game blind at a certain point. So the fact that they would bring people on, getting fresh sets of eyes, to really like crack these games and like beat them to death.
Well, and that applies to anything you're creating.
Yeah.
Like it's super important to get lots and lots of opinions and perspectives on things.
Yeah.
Playtesting.
Yeah.
Have you guys been to the Funko store in Everett?
Oh my God, it's so
Oh
great.
gosh, it sounds dangerous.
It rivals most Disney theme park stores. Like it is a magical place to go into and look at. You can.
We just sometimes go there just to like have our son run around and play.
Yeah.
Like
Nice.
it's really awesome.
Usually
I'll
we
have to check that out.
we like will hear about a Funko that we particularly like and hunt that down. Like my wife had me chasing down Black Panther Funkos for quite a while.
Oh,
like
yeah,
a
yeah.
Koye.
There was is it the one with the removable?
No. It was a Koye one, and apparently that was. I think it was just her like with the spear.
Yeah.
I don't think it was weird or special. It was just like a limited edition for a little while.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should available. They have one of her with the wig from the thing that you can remove it. It's like the first time Funko's done a removable wig. It's awesome. Anyways, you go check out the store. Very excited, very happy for all of our friends at Force Present Creative. And again, this is going to be huge. And as Derek said, we're going to be keeping eyes on Funko and Force Present to see what's coming from them because I think it's going to be huge. Folks, we are out of time. We will be back next week, as always. Same bad time, same bad channel. If the panel would like to share and give shout-outs to their social medias of where you can be found so our audience can say, hey, I have questions and thoughts about what you're talking about in the show. Where can they find you?
I can be found on Twitter at Tifa Robles.
And tfourrobles.com.
And TifaRobles.com, which will have my Kickstarter starting Tuesday.
I was about to say we can find you on Kickstarter soon, can't we?
Yes,
Yeah.
launching
Exciting.
February 26th.
Ooh,
Sweet.
that's so soon.
I'm at Emma Larkins pretty much everywhere. Twitter is the big place you can find me. I've actually been streaming more on Twitch though.
Ooh.
So I've been doing a little bit of very silly Magic drafts.
Nice.
We got pivoted halfway through into Is It and like got Niv because we got Niv Mizzet, and so it was a terrible deck, but it was a lot of fun playing it. So I tend to do very silly things on my
And
stream.
you helped us out 2 weeks ago, I think.
Oh yeah, for the Learn to Play thing too.
Oh,
that
nice.
was part of what got me more into it because it was super fun just to like talk about Magic.
I am frequent beef in a lot of places.
There you go.
Sweet.
You can also follow Gen Con on Twitter at GenCon, Gen_Con, I believe. And then, of course, make sure you're following this channel to see all of the shows, not just this one. And you can always find me on Twitter at TheMikeRobles. We'll see you next week. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.